Good morning, DC. How you doing?
Doing great, Martin. How are you this morning?
Doing well, doing well. Were you able to hear the audio with Coach Saban talking about Tua Tagovailoa?
Yeah, I've heard it. I just heard it right before I came on. So, yes, I've heard that sound bite.
Yeah, when you hear that, yesterday I did a segment, Who Can You Trust? How do you feel hearing that, seeing some video? Is Nick Saban selling Oklahoma, or is it legit that Tua Tagovailoa really is progressing? And what does that really mean in terms of he's able to run, but then but he can't go sideways at 100%, and then he throws out the gravity treadmill.
Yeah, I think he's being legitimate about his chance to play, and I think several things in his soundbite there. If you listen to people who've been listening to Saban now since he's been here, one key thing he's always said is if he's not able to practice, then he's not able to play in the game. So I think he's putting the word out there for Oklahoma and for everybody that, hey, he's going to be available for the game even at this time. With still time left to go. Now, is he going to be 100%? Is the question is going to be able to be effective in the game? That's what he leaves open to chance there. I think he's leaving that out there, and then basically, I believe for Oklahoma to have to prepare for two quarterbacks.
That's right.
Prepare for Jalen Hurts and prepare for Tua Tagovailoa. And I think the opportunity is there for both of them to play in this game and both of them be effective. But Tua can use his range of motion back, his cutting ability to go side to side, and I think he'll be able to play and be effective. His being able to be in the pocket and throw from the pocket, I think, is impressive at this point. I think looking at Tua and looking at him walk, looking at him practice, what I've seen in my own eyes, and judging how Jalen looked after coming back from a similar procedure, I think Tua's ahead. I agree with Coach Saban based on while I'm looking at my own eyes. He's ahead of where I thought he would be at this time.
Yeah, and that makes me also wonder, did they actually have the same procedure? Because everyone else that's had this procedure other than Jalen, we saw pretty much their ankle injury. We saw them limp off the field, and we saw them back and ready to go in 2 weeks. With Jalen, because I didn't see Jalen get hurt, and so I agree with you. From what I saw in Tua, I think it was CBS 42 that showed some video of it. His straight line foot movement, the pressure, I was looking at not how fast he was moving, but was he putting pressure on the ankle? And he did. Now, the key is, I think Tua, even though Tua is not a quote-unquote, air quote, running quarterback, I think his mobility, his stop and start with his spin moves within the pocket, kind of that Drew Brees type of thing, use his feet to move, is still yet to be seen. And we saw that if he doesn't have that, he's a different type of quarterback. So that lateral movement statement is, in my opinion, DC, also what kind of leaves it up in the air. Will Tua be not ready to play or able to play, but will he be as effective as we want to see him play against Oklahoma?
No, I agree with that assessment. I think it leaves it open for us, but also for Oklahoma to have to prepare ourselves again for two quarterbacks. I think that's important. Oklahoma's defense is lackluster to say the least, and having to prepare for two and having scheming for two different types of quarterbacks will definitely give them a little trouble.
Yeah, and one of the big things we're talking about Tua being back and looking forward to that. And like I said, I pray for the young man, and I also from just his standpoint and his walk and his season, but also from an Alabama fan, I hope to see a 100% healthy Tua, because I really want to see this matchup between these two quarterbacks. But as much as we build this game up about the quarterbacks, I think it's really going to come down to the running game on both sides of the ball. I think, first of all, let's talk about Oklahoma. This Oklahoma team, even though Kyler Murray had 4,000 passing yards or whatever it was, he's an effective runner, but this running game for Oklahoma is not bad either. What do you think about their ability to be able to run the ball on Alabama and the role it'll play in them having success?
Well, I agree with you 100%. I've said all along that we're all talking about the passing game and the quarterbacks, but this game is going to be won by the team that runs the ball the best, or the team that stops the run. And I think Alabama has going to have their hands full in stopping this running game that Oklahoma has. I think their running backs are very good at hitting the holes, and they've got a lot of speed to get to the outside. Now, we've had some success against teams running wide because we have two linebackers in the middle that can really cover a lot of field. Deontay Thompson being able to cover and play a lot of the wide spots in the safeties. He's helped a lot in run support. I believe that if we can stop the run with our front seven and allow Thompson to stay back, then we'll have an opportunity to win this game pretty easily against Oklahoma. But the ability to do that is left to be seen. I think that's what we're preparing for. And I think if we're able to stop them with our linebackers and our linemen, it'll be a long day for Oklahoma. If they can't establish a run on Alabama, I don't see them winning the ball game or getting even close to Alabama in this game.
I'm going to talk about Alabama's offensive side of the ball in just a second. But before I do that, they have he's good, but he's young, and that's that redshirt freshman center for Oklahoma. How big a role do you think? I know we need all of them, but how big of a disruptor do you expect Quentin Williams to be if he can kind of maintain that middle and the impact it has on the game?
Well, you can believe that the Quentin Williams and Isaiah Buggs and Raekwon Davis, they've been told all the last 2 weeks how great this Oklahoma line is and how awesome they are and how they've been able to just manhandle and maul everybody. So I think, first of all, Alabama's going to be ready on the defensive front to really compete well in this game. But the one thing, if you watch Oklahoma on film, they are great at the guard and the tackle position. But so many times when they've been taken advantage of, it's been through the center. And you're right, he's young. I look for Quentin Williams to have a big day. He's been my standout player many times after games, but I expect after this game we're going to look at the great job he's done of handling that line of scrimmage. And I believe if he can put the pressure on them to stop the running game at the line and also pressure Kyler Murray up the middle, I think it's going to be a long day for Oklahoma.
That's DC Capstone Report presented by freelancepictures.com, rolltopbama.com. You can find that podcast in its entirety at DC Capstone Report. We're going to continue our conversation after halftime with DC. We're going to flip sides of the ball in terms of the running game coming back. But until then, stay tuned. And want to remind you to go check out our great sponsors, Alabama One. Alabama One is the one you turn to for all of your financial needs. We have locations throughout West Alabama to better serve you. Also one down in Mount Vernon. If you're listening online, go check them out for those great rates, great debit cards, great.
Yeah, he's practicing. He's doing well. He's probably not 100% yet, but he's making good progress, and we're encouraged by it.
You're back in with the Blitz on Tide 102.9 to 100.9. That was Coach Saban responding to the question about D. Brown. And we talked about the team that can run the ball, in this game. Oklahoma and Alabama has the best chance. We hadn't talked a lot about it, DC, but when you look at what's happening with Alabama in this game and Tua and whether Tua is going to be 100% or not, how important is it for Alabama to get Deontay Brown back?
Oh, I think it's extremely important, Martin. We identified Deontay Brown on your show back preseason before it ever started as somebody who can make an impact. And, boy, you were right. He has made an impact in this season. I think in the running game, he is invaluable. You see it when he's in. You see the difference when he's out. And to get him back at full strength in this game would be just an awesome thing for the team, because I think that will set us up to have a great running game. And when we have a great running game, I think Tua is going to be able to just throw the ball with extreme accuracy. So I think we're going to have a great passing game because of the running game. But I believe in this game, if we open the game up with running the ball against Oklahoma with Deontay Brown in there, I think it's going to open up so much more for our offense down throughout the game. So I look for him to be a big impact. To me, him coming back 100% is in my mind more critical than Tua. I just think he's that valuable to the running game.
And when you talk about the impact that he can have, it impacts us from goal line to goal line. But one of the good things about hosting the Blitz is we got a lot of knowledgeable listeners and followers, and they do a lot of reading and stats. I've not read this, but Robert Saucier saying in the red zone, their defense gives up a score 93% of the time, and 80+% of those are TDs. So you know, to me, that plays even more into Alabama. Now, I believe you score every time you can, okay? I don't believe you intentionally run the clock to score. I mean, run the clock down without trying to score. I think you score every chance you get, if that makes sense. But if you can run the ball effectively, continue to get first downs, best defense against Alabama has been an effective offense like Georgia used. If they're this week in the red zone, quickly the advantage flips to Alabama, and Deontay Brown, DC, has an even more important role. But if that's the case, who else becomes mission critical in terms of this offense?
Well, I think the running game starts with Damian Harris, Najee Harris, and Josh Jacobs. Those three having a big game, and I think we worked well. I think in this game, if we can identify the player with the hot hand there and who's making the biggest impact and use them early, I think it's going to be critical in this game. You know, sometimes we've been less effective doing that. It seemed to me like Burton Burns had the knack for that. He knew who to go with, who had the hot hand, and we see them used. This year, we hadn't seen that as much. There's been some times where I thought Josh Jacobs, if he would stay in the game, we'd have had a lot more red zone touchdowns because of the way he was running the ball. But that's just my opinion. I think that's going to be critical. Find out which running back is going to be able to get the job done early and stick with them during that first half. I believe, you know, this Oklahoma defense, that I read that same stat, and I know it's true. It's hard to believe. I didn't believe it first, but you know, I think sometimes in the way they play and is they get down that close, they're just going to give up because they know they can score. They're going to go ahead and just score. Let's have more time to get the ball to score.
Yeah,
and I really believe running the ball like Alabama can do in this game can take some time off the clock as well as score also in the red zone. So I think that's a good time. The more Alabama has the ball, the more we run the ball, the better off we're going to be to win this ball game.
Speaking with DC Capstone Report, presented by freelancepictures.com and rolltopbama.com. You can find this podcast, his podcast in its entirety, at dccapstonereport.com. DC, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions about this game, and then, of course, we're going to have next week. And, of course, next Tuesday is Christmas, so we'll shift your day. We may have you on, Wednesday or Friday where we can just talk about the game in its entirety. But I still want to have a couple things for you to throw out there and think about. And then I'm going to do a rapid fire on you, okay?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. First of all, which player do you see potentially stepping up that hasn't played this year or hasn't played a lot with these weeks of practice? Is there a freshman or any other player that may find himself offensively or defensively in the game and making a contribution? Sort of like Derrick Henry did in that, you remember, we lost the game to Oklahoma, but Derrick Henry showed a lot of flashes his freshman year, sort of that type of player.
Yeah, I think that there's potential for that always when you have such a long time to prepare for a game and get some other players some playing time. You know, I look for on defensive side of the ball. I think Ale Ko, the freshman linebacker that's playing on special teams, I think he has the opportunity to contribute in this game. I think we're going to need some of our backup players like Jalen Moody to come in. I believe Oklahoma's going to try to stretch us from side to side. There's going to be a lot of running. And I think that those two, I think, on defense have an opportunity to come in and make an impact. I really believe that our defense is going to be – they're going to try to gas our defense. I think we play so much better we can keep them on their side of the 50. But if they can get big plays and try to gas our defense, I think having some backups come in. And I believe I've noticed in some of the practice that Jalen Moody and Alec Cahill, they both have been doing really well in these drills. So I look for them to kind of step up. On offense, we haven't seen as much out of different players on offense that might step up. I think Jalen Hurts has an opportunity to be effective in this game, simply coming off the big game he had against Georgia. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Brian Robinson gets into the game playing more running back and is effective in this game based on his style of running.
Well, you and I have not talked about this, and I had the two linebackers. I think they're going to be mission critical. I really do, because for two reasons. One is Kehu is going to be I think he's going to be one of those guys who can play in space, and I think that's going to be critical. And so if he can get that, understanding of the game and the defense and the complexity of playing the linebacker position, I think he comes in as part of that. If they're having success passing, I say Kehu gets in. If they're having success running, Jalen Moody gets in. I think, just as you said, as a point of giving these guys a break, we're going to have somebody. And two other guys, and of course, LeBron Ray has played a lot. I think he's going to play a lot more because we're going to have to rush the ball. We're going to have to rush this team 40, 45, 50 times. And I think D lineman, a guy who has not played much, who's a freshman who can come in and help, I think is Stephon Wynn Jr. may be able to get a little time. I don't see Musika, the big nose tackle, getting in there, but Johnny Dwight's a senior guy who I think may also have a little bit of time. But from the freshmen, Stephen Wynn, Kehu, and Moody, we kind of agree on that. Offensively, I think they've been implementing the freshmen right into it. So I could see Brian Robinson, as you said, potentially getting in on that. Couple rapid fire questions for you. There is a question about Ayoba Anoma and his status, and Coach Saban talked about him having a personal day. Is the Ayoba Anoma situation, because he would be a guy that I would have said that if I'd not heard that yesterday, but is he a guy that may be impacted by this Loxley decision, being from Maryland, recruited by him?
Yeah, I think that's what's going on there. I think he was recruited by Coach Loxley. Coach Loxley's a Maryland guy. Gabi Anoma's a Maryland guy. I think that's been a very personal thing for him. He's trying to decide the future, what's best for him, and going back and playing in front of his hometown fans, I think that's important. But I believe after yesterday, I think you'll see him back at practice today. And he was going to be one of mine to come up. I think he would be a great outside rusher to chase, to give chase to Kyler Murray all over the field. I think he's that fast. If I not heard about his personal day this week, I would have said he would be the guy that be the Derrick Henry type in this game to kind of come on and make an impact. But I think he sticks at Alabama. I've seen some things out of his camp saying, hey, he's made a decision, he's going to stick with it. So I think he'll be there in practice today.
All right. Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, comment. Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. You can't – there's no way that you could – Alabama can talk about how great Josh Jacobs has been to this team this year. I look for him to really show up in this Oklahoma game and really make a difference. You got to remember there's a little edge there. He was sitting right in their backyard, never was noticed, never was even talked to inside Alabama had already started recruiting him. So I look for Josh Jacobs to have a monster game.
Yeah, I'm thinking Josh Jacobs is going to just show out being back in front of his home crowd. Does Jalen play whether Tua is 100% or not? Yeah,
I think Jalen plays no matter what in this game. He's going to come in and give him some reps at the quarterback position. I think he comes in and makes an impact, and does a good job in this game.
When you look at, let's flip to Georgia for a second. Justin Fields transferring.
Not surprising. I think Justin Fields is a great talent, and I think there's a lot of teams out there that need a quarterback. And I think it doesn't surprise me a bit that he's transferring. I think it's probably pretty much a done deal. He's just trying to decide where he's going to go.
All right. Someone just popped up. Josh Jacobs got a third-round grade from NFL. He'll probably be back for his senior year. I wouldn't count on Josh Jacobs' grade staying as a third round, just commenting to Ken Wiley on that. Your thoughts on if Josh Jacobs plays these next two games the same way, whether his stock will go up and whether he'll be one of those guys that would test into a potential first-rounder?
I think his stock's going to definitely go up after the playoffs. I think it's gone up already. I think those grounds, the NFL people are looking at him to fill a distinct role in the NFL right now. So I think you have to make a decision. He might be as high as a second-round grade when it's all said and done.
All right. Robert Saucier asking, does Coach give – this is not Martin, so nobody jumps on me. Robert Saucier asks, does Coach give Jalen the start as a thank you for what he's done?
No, absolutely not. Jalen starts because he's earned it or because Tua is not able to go. I think Tua starts the game if he's able to start. I think Jalen plays. A lot of things about they're going about Jalen transferring, and I'm going to talk about on our podcast when we look at it. You know, there's another side of that coin. Everybody thinks he's transferring. I think there's just a big enough case about him staying at Alabama for another year.
I agree with you there. Back to Georgia real quick. The impact of Mel Tucker on Kirby moving forward.
I think it's going to be a lot bigger impact than people imagine. They think Kirby is the author of the defense there. I think Kirby is having his hands full being a head coach now, and I think getting a great defensive coordinator that knows the scheme is important. And Mel Tucker learned the scheme when he was at Alabama and knew it. I think it's going to be a big loss for Kirby at Georgia.
All right. Speaking of Kirby, then two things that I don't think Nick Saban gets enough credit for in terms of what he does as a coach outside of recruiting is his hiring of staff and his development of players. In terms of what will be the impact if Kirby, first of all, on the hiring front, is this his first big test truly as a head coach?
No doubt. I think Kirby Smart, who he hires as a defensive coordinator, can shape his team for the next 4 years. And he can either make it better or he can really tank it. So I think this is probably the biggest decision he's ever made as a head coach. And we'll see what kind of coach he is by who he hires.
And, of course, back to the Justin Fields thing, Nick Saban has been able to convince players to stay and wait their turn and then develop them into players. What's your grade on Kirby with the fact that he's already losing one of his top players? Is this also an area that could be the downfall of Kirby in terms of development and getting players to buy into the process?
Well, I think he's got a lot to learn in that area right now. I mean, remember it's his first couple of years as head coach. I think Coach Saban is doing a lot better of it now than he did when he first started. We've had our share of transfers as well, but I think that he's got a lot of room to improve in that area. He's lost two quarterbacks that were highly rated quarterbacks that Justin Fields leads in his first 2 years. So I think he leaves a little bit on the table when coming to how to handle his players. I think it'll come with time. Yeah,
this will be the second. If Justin Fields truly leaves, it'll be the second 5-star quarterback that he's lost in as many years. So closing it out, DC, I toss it to you. Anything you want to close out or say in regards to Christmas, wishing everybody whatever as we close out, since you won't be back on to after Christmas?
Yeah, I do. I just want to say out there to all the listeners this year, it's been a pleasure for me to be on your show, Martin, and to have the listeners that still chime in and watch a podcast. I want to say I wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And remember the reason we celebrate the season. I'm a firm believer of every time I get an opportunity or platform to say it, is the reason we celebrate the season is the birth of Jesus Christ. And he's made the difference in my life, and I know he can make the difference in all of your listeners out there as well. So remember that this year, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas, DC Capstone Report. You can find the podcast in its entirety at DC Capstone Report, presented by Lance Short, freelancepictures.com and rolltidebama.com. DC, tell them how they can find you on Twitter and out there in the social media verse.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at DavidCott50. That's DavidCott 50. On Facebook, you can follow us DC Capstone Report page and also DCCapstoneReport.com. Now, we're going to have our podcast up later because there's been no game. We move it up later in the week. This week, we're going to talk about the game prep that's going on, the injured people coming back, possibility of getting Deontay Brown and Tua healthy. And then finally, we're going to talk about the transfer rumors about Jalen Hurts, and I'll make the case for why Jalen Hurts stays at Alabama for his senior season.
I've heard some of that story, so you want to make sure you know the place to go to get it is in its entirety, DCCapstoneReport.com. Thanks, DC. We'll catch up with you next week on a special day, and we'll let our listeners know when that is.
All right, thanks, Martin. Have a great week. Merry Christmas and roll Tide.